Before getting into the definition of variables, let us relate them to an old mathematical equation. Many of us would have solved many mathematical equations since childhood. As an example, consider the function here and the equation x squared plus y minus 2 equal to 1. The important thing that we need to understand is that the equation has names x and y, which hold values or data. So x would hold data or value, and y in the same way. That means names x and y are placeholders for representing the data. Similarly, in computer science, programming, we need something for holding data and variables. In the way to do that, we have to create a variable x and we have to create a variable y in order to hold the data. In this equation, the variable x and y can take any values, such as integral numbers 10 or 20, real numbers as 0.43, 6.3, or just 0 or 1. In the same way, y could take the 53 or 99, or 0.211 or 8.7, or 0 or 1. Okay? To solve the equation, we need to relate them to kind of values they can take, and data type is the name used in computer science programming for this purpose. The data type in the programming language is a set of data with predefined values. Examples of data types are integer, like 10 or 20, float as 0.43 or 6.3, and Boolean 0 or 1. Okay? Computer memory is all filled with zeros and ones. If we have a problem and we want to code it, it's very difficult to provide the solution in terms of zeros and one. To help users, programming languages and compilers provide us with data types. So, for example, we have integer, we have float. Integers takes 2 bytes. Actually, actual value depends on compiler, and float takes 4 bytes, and etc. This says that in memory we are combining 2 bytes or 16 bits and calling it an integer. Okay? For that purpose, we have a data type reduces the coding effort. At the top level, there are 2 types of data types. The primitive data, which are integer, float, or Boolean, and another type is called user-defined data types, such as objects. Okay, so data types are primitive data like integer, float, or Boolean, and the user-defined that we are going to see later on. Okay, so the system data or system-defined data types like primitive data are like int, float, char, double, Boolean, in Java and C and Python. The number of bits allocated for each primitive data depends on the programming language and the compiler and the operating system. Okay? And it may differ for the ranges for every type. While the user-defined data types, if the system-defined data types are not enough, then most programming languages allow the user to define their own data types, called user-defined data types, okay, such as object. Good example of user-defined data types are structure in C or C++ and classes in Java. We will see them later on through the course.